coefficient of variation. Now this coefficient of variation is dependent with respect to with mean deviation also. It is with respect to range also. It is with respect to quartile deviation also, and it is with respect to standard deviation also. How we write this as? How? This is, I'm giving you the formulas. It's based on Y. Any idea? Have you heard about it earlier? What do you understand by coefficient variation? What do you understand by the word coefficient? Coefficient, you must have heard so many life till yet. What is the meaning of coefficient? It's a very, very basic term. Anyone? I'm giving you 2 minutes. 5x में 5 is coefficient. Alright. Rajan is saying if we are writing f into x implies f is the coefficient and x is what? X is variable. Now something is written like this. Yes. Variable. Fine. Now what do you understand by this? Absolutely correct, Akhil. This is what I'm asking. Magnitude of variable. This gives you the 5. 5 implies the magnitude or the strength, magnitude or strength or measurement strength or the measurement kiska of your given variable. Fine. So this is represented as coefficient. Means what? That numerical quantity or that mathematical quantity which gives the property or which defines the variable strength of your variable. So now we are doing coefficient of variations. Variations we have already done. So variations are your mean deviation, your quartile deviation and your standard deviation. Fine. So this we have done. And range very basic term implies which includes complete data from your minimum value to your maximum value. So we have coefficient of variance for all these terms. Now how do we calculate that? So we have direct formula. You don't have to go into much detail. Just remember this formula. If it is asked to evaluate the coefficient, we are finding, I'm writing in a single term only, coefficient of dispersion or scatteredness. Coefficient of dispersion. First category is for the range. You are evaluating for the range. So its formula is your maximum value minus minimum value over x. This is x, okay? Means your data over maximum value plus your minimum. This is minimum, mn. Your minimum value. X के base में it is mn. So your, or in other terms, uppermost value of the upper class minus lowermost value over the uppermost value plus lowermost value. One of the same kind. This will give you the coefficient of dispersion in terms of range. Now another is coefficient of dispersion for the quartile deviation. Now, this is given as semi-quartile range divided by your median. Now you know the formula of your semi-quartile range. Now this is what? Q3 minus Q1 whole upon 2. Now this whole thing over median. Q2, which is also written as Q3 minus Q1 whole divided by 2, and your median ka another formula is Q3 plus Q1 divided by 2. So your coefficient of dispersion for quartile deviation will be Q3 minus Q1 over Q3 plus Q1. Alright. Now, next is the coefficient of dispersion for the standard deviation. Now, this is defined as your standard deviation upon mean. You must have seen somewhere. This is equals to this, which is represented as, standard deviation is a sigma. The mean is over x bar. Yes, Utkarsh has seen. Where have you seen this, Utkarsh? This we use very commonly. Median. Acha, R.D. Sharma. Fine. Alright. Now another term is very important, that is coefficient, that is in the terms of a mathematician, Karl Pearson coefficient. This also you must have heard somewhere. Karl Pearson's coefficients of variation. Karl Pearson's coefficient of variation. Acha, heard yesterday in your quiz, or I told you? This is represented as capital CV, and mathematically it is formulated as standard deviation. Okay, last lecture. Standard deviation over mean into 100. This gives you Karl Pearson coefficient for variation. Mean deviation? Mean deviation we have already included in this only. Range and quartile deviation. We don't need that now. That is included in the terms of standard deviation only. Fine. So we have these four standard, 3. Range, quartile, and with respect to the standard deviation. And commonly used is your coefficient of variation of your dispersion with respect to the standard deviation. This is the most commonly used formula in the real life applications. Alright. Now, say suppose, now I asked you, why do we need coefficient of variation? Question reh gaya beech mein. I was asking, why do you need coefficient of dispersion? Because till now, what we have covered so many things till now. Your central tendency, your positional averages. Pity for all the. I can revise. Then you should make a formulas for that. एक flow chart बनाओ उसका. That is what I am revising right now in this column. You see, PPT होती है. Shows the extent of variability of data. Coefficient. Acha. Utkarsh is saying coefficient of variation shows the extent of variability of data. This is what I told you. But why? This is the measurement. The way we measure all these things. But what is the requirement? What made you to, not you, but what made mathematician to explore or to come up with this idea of coefficient of variation? Because अब देखो जो तुमने अभी तक पढ़ा है, क्या क्या पढ़ा है? Be serious, Utkarsh. We have studied mean, median, then mode, then quartile, decile, percentile, then geometric mean, then harmonic mean, then variance, then standard deviation, range, and और क्या रह गया? एंड दैट वेटेड अरिथमेटिक मीन. और कुछ रह गया? We have covered almost everything. Now you see, in all these categories, whenever you are putting your mean, median, mode, quartile, decile, etc., then you see the parameter or the dimensions of your given data are always same. Fine. If you are evaluating mean, तो किसका निकाल दो? Say suppose you are calculating the mean of the height of student. Yeah, you are calculating the mean of the standard deviation of the marks obtained by the class. You see, अब अपने सारे डेटा को evaluate करो, the kind all examples we have done till now. But say suppose if I am studying your, तुम कौन सी क्लास के हो? बीटेक के हो, बीटेक सीएससी. If I am studying कि बीटेक सीएससी की बच्चों की एज क्या है, एवरेज एज क्या है, या फिर आई एम स्टडिंग द स्टैंडर्ड डेविएशन और द वेरिएंस इन द एज फैक्टर ऑफ या एज ऑफ द बीटेक सीएससी. कौन सा सेमेस्टर तुम्हारा? फोर्थ सेमेस्टर. इस बच्चों की एज कितनी होगी? मिनिमम से मिनिमम, मिनिमम से मैक्सिमम तक. एंड साइमल्टेनियसली आई एम ऑल्सो स्टडिंग what is the weight and height of your class or all the students present in your class. Now you see, age will come in years. Your height would be measured in inches. Say suppose I take in inches, and your weight is measured in kgs. And I'm studying all these things, all these parameters with respect to what I intend to do is I intend to evaluate mean, and I also intend to evaluate standard deviation or variance or quartile of your class. Fine? Or the range of your class altogether depending on these factors. Then none of these formula are going to study all these all together, because every single particular quantity is based on single dimensions or single parameters. But when you have different parameters in different SI units and you want to study all together, then we need coefficient of dispersion. That is why we study in terms of range, quartile deviation or standard deviation. Fine. In that case, means when you are studying together, we consider the ratios. Or in other terms, if we have different dimensions for the comparison, then we utilize, or the ratios are the better indicator. Then in that case, we consider the ratios. Ratios are the better indicator for the comparison of our dispersion. Understood? That is why we find the coefficient of variation. Say suppose, अभी तुम इंटरव्यू में गए हो, and in interview panel there are 4 experts sitting over there who are evaluating you. Then each, say suppose the favorite parameter for each expert is different. One expert is evaluating you on the basis of personality, other is evaluating you on the basis of knowledge, third is evaluating you on the basis of your experience, and fourth, someone gave your reference to the fourth expert. Now you see, whenever they are evaluating you, they will score you according to all these parameters. And these are not disclosed, say suppose. And they have given you marks out of this, out of this, out of this, out of this, but their parameters are varying, are the dimensions which are varying. But the score value is the same. In that case, we find the coefficient of variation. Fine? Get the idea? Now, how you evaluate? Your simple formulas are these. Fine? These are your formulas. And coefficient of variation, how you evaluate? Sigma over x bar into 100. And you know sigma is your standard deviation. Standard deviation se divide your mean into 100 will give you coefficient of variation. Understood, everyone? I'm erasing the board. सिर्फ उत्कर्ष का यस आ रहा है. All right, Jawad. We are not doing all right, Akhil. Fine. I'm not doing complete question because it will take time. I'm just giving you idea and then you have to evaluate yourself. Okay? इसको try करना. Just note down. I'm giving you the data. Say suppose I have first is performance. किसकी? Of some candidate. This is the performance. कोई इंटरव्यू हो रहा है या कोई टेस्ट हो रहा है उसमें परफॉर्मेंस इज गिवन फॉर द 7 कैंडिडेट 1 2 3 4 5 6 and 7 and there is 2 judge or 2 expert marks given by first judge P and it's 46 42 44 40 43, 41 and 45. Okay. And another judge is Q who has given marks to all the candidates 1 to 7 as 40, 38, 36, 35, 39, 37 and 41. Fine. And they have asked you to evaluate the coefficient of variations. They have asked you to evaluate coefficient of variation in the marks awarded by 2 judges and discuss या comment. Discuss या comment. Comment means what? After evaluating this coefficient of variation, what are you going to interpret? Conclude कैसे करोगे? All right. और दूसरी चीज is, if your mean is higher, then we say your solution is, say suppose shortcut में, चलो, I am not giving you complete solution, वो तुम खुद solve कर लेना how you are going to evaluate. Now this is your individual data. And you know the formula for the individual data for the standard deviation is, you remember? Standard deviation का formula is under root individual data है, this would be x minus x bar का square over complete n, that is sigma x. Now this is your standard deviation because variance is sigma square, sigma x minus x bar ka whole square over n. This is your standard deviation. And what you need to evaluate? Your mean. Your mean is sigma x over n hota hai. So this is x minus assume mean over n. You will evaluate what? You will find your this sigma complete x le lo, that is easy. Add all these terms divided by n. Add all these terms divide by n. Now this is the, say suppose this is your capital X data, this is your capital Y data. What you need to do is we have to evaluate two values, that is for X data and for Y data. You need to evaluate X bar for this also and you need to evaluate standard deviation for X individually. Similarly, you need to evaluate mean for Y data and standard deviation for the other data. Standard deviation for X and standard deviation for Y. Formula is this only, you know. Evaluate करोगे and you will get the answer. Say suppose हमारे पास जो values आ रही हैं, I'm giving you the answer so that you can evaluate yourself. We are getting the mean as for this. That is, for X we have mean is 43. We can see it's lying here. And the standard deviation of the given data is 2. Similarly, mean for Y is, that is Y bar, this is coming out to be 38. We see it's lying between is here. And your standard deviation for this is 2 again. Now you see the difference, because you have to comment, and for this you need understanding how you are going to interpret this result. For this you need to first find the coefficient of variation, and uska formula is standard deviation, that is standard deviation upon mean. So it's 2 by 43 into 100. So its answer is 4.65. X के लिए, only for X data. Similarly, when you are evaluating coefficient of variance for Y data, you know your standard deviation is 2 and your mean is 38 into 100. Your value will be, it's coming out to be 5.26. Okay. Now, अपना answer is this. What do you interpret by this? Coefficient of variation is 4.65 and its coefficient of variation is 5.26. Any idea? Any rough idea? Or if you have studied or heard somewhere else, what do you interpret by this? Judge P का coefficient of variation is 4.65 and Judge Q has coefficient of variation as 5.26. Yes, Utkarsh. Is giving marks by more variation by the Judge Q? Yes, 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 yes. Yes, Rajan, you are very correct. Something more? Y should lie at the second entry, ma'am. Mean of Y should lie at the second entry. Means? I didn't get you. At JQ. Mean should lie at the second entry. अच्छा, you have to arrange. ठीक है. Yes, 38. ये दिखा नहीं मैं पहले. I thought this 35, 39. I thought it's in ascending. Okay. Fine. Your mean is 38. Rajan said coefficient of variation of Judge Q is higher. Implies what? Rajan? One conclusion is correct. You concluded. Rajan is saying more variation in given marks by Judge Q. Very true. लेकिन इसका मतलब क्या हुआ? Now you see, we have to study both. Mean also, there is more discrepancy in Judge 2. Not discrepancy, we'll say. You see, look at this. Let me take. Mean by first judge is 43 and mean of second judge is 38. And now what do you mean by, understand by the term mean? Mean is your average. Fine. So who is giving more marks? Who is giving the more marks to the candidates? Yeah, something like that, Jawad only. That is, yes. P implies what? He is more liberal in giving marks. Yeah, he is more lenient in checking. Right? So this what we interpret, क्योंकि ज्यादा मार्क्स दे रहा है, सभी को दे रहा है, तो उसकी एवरेज इतनी है, यानी वो सबके साथ ही lenient है थोड़ा. But judge, other judge Q, he is strict. He is not giving marks liberally. Right? Whatever. Right. ठीक है. Now come to the other point. Now you understood the meaning of mean. Similarly, now come at the deviation, standard deviation. You see, standard deviation of both the candidate is same. By both the judges, standard deviation is same. But your coefficient of variation is varying. Implies what? Variation means what? It's a change. Change in the data with respect to average and the individual data. तो बाकी सारे डेटा से comparatively average के साथ when you are calculating your variations, it is less. And when variation is less, it means the decision by the judge Q is consistent. जिसका variation is less, we say that is the more consistent data or the more consistent or accurate or valid judgment. Understood? So we conclude in this word that Judge P is more liberal in giving marks and is more consistent because his coefficient of variation is less in comparison to the other judge. Understood? Alright. Now we are coming to next concept. I'm done with this now. Can you do these questions? How to evaluate coefficient of variations? Everyone? Fine. I'm erasing the board then.